You did something reasonable. Maybe you said you needed more time before making a decision. Maybe you said you were not available that night. Maybe you told someone quietly and honestly that something they did had hurt you. Something reasonable, something any healthy person would do without a second thought, and they lost it. Not a little, not briefly. They went cold for days, or they exploded in a way that left the whole room shaken, or they cried and cried until somehow you were the one comforting them for the pain your boundary caused. Or they went to other people and suddenly everyone had an opinion about what you did. And somehow, you ended up apologizing for having a need. If you have ever lived that moment, if you know exactly what that feels like in your chest, stay right here. Because tonight on Hushbeam, we are going to talk about exactly what happened and why it was never, ever about you. Tonight's story is called Why They Punish You for Having Boundaries. And by the end of this episode, you will understand something about that punishment that most people spend years, sometimes entire lifetimes, never fully grasping. Hold that with you as we go. We are going to come back to it. If you are new to Hushbeam, welcome. I am genuinely glad you found your way here. This channel is a quiet space made for people who are healing. Every week, I release a whispered sleep story built around real psychology, just a calm voice, honest truths, and the kind of understanding that gives your nervous system permission to finally rest. If that is what your soul needs tonight, please subscribe. The button is just below this video. 1 second, and it means you will never miss a new episode. And if tonight's story reaches you, even just one sentence of it, a lake costs you nothing, but it helps Hushbeam find someone else who is lying awake tonight, needing exactly this conversation. Now, let's settle in. Take one slow breath with me. In through your nose, hold it gently, and let it go. Good. We begin. Before we talk about why they punish you, we need to talk about what a boundary actually is. Because most of us were never told. We grew up in homes or entered relationships where a boundary was treated as an act of aggression, where saying no felt identical to saying, I do not love you, where having a need made you difficult or selfish or cold, where the smallest, quietest, most accommodating version of you was the only version that ever felt truly safe to be. So I want to be very clear with you before we go any further. A boundary is not a wall. It is not a punishment. It is not a declaration that you are done caring. It is not a weapon. A boundary is simply an information. It is you communicating as clearly and honestly as you can what you are able to give and what you are not. What you need in order to stay present and genuine in a relationship. What you cannot continue to absorb without quietly disappearing inside yourself. The psychologist Nedra Tawwab describes a boundary as something you create for yourself, not something you do to someone else. Sit with that distinction for a moment. For yourself, not to someone else. You're not punishing anyone by needing rest. You are not abandoning someone by needing space. You are not being cruel when you say that a particular behavior is one you can no longer accept. You are simply telling the truth about what it takes for you to remain a whole person. And here's what nobody prepares you for. Emotionally healthy people do not feel threatened by that truth. They may need a moment. They may feel disappointed, but they do not retaliate. The ones who retaliate are giving you information too, and we are going to look at exactly what that information means. So why do they punish you? And I want to be precise about that word, punish, because that is exactly what it is. When someone responds to your boundary with extended silence, with rage, with guilt, with manufactured crisis, that is punishment. It may not look like it in the traditional sense. It may look like love. It may look like pain. But it is designed, consciously or not, to make the cost of your boundary higher than the cost of abandoning it. Let me say that one more time, because it matters. Their reaction is designed to make the price of your boundary higher than the price of simply giving it up, so that next time, you don't try. Psychologists who study relational systems often describe something called fog: fear, obligation, guilt. These are the three primary emotional tools used often unconsciously by people who cannot tolerate where another person ends and they begin. Fear. They make you afraid of what holding your position will cost you. They go silent for days. They suggest the relationship is now in danger. They make you feel that something irreversible will happen if you do not take it back. Obligation. They remind you of everything they have ever done, every sacrifice, every difficult season. They reframe your boundary as ingratitude, as a betrayal of everything they have given. Guilt. They position themselves as the victim of your boundary. Your quiet, self-protective, entirely reasonable decision becomes the source of their suffering. And because you are someone who cares, because empathy is something you carry, the guilt lands exactly where they needed it to. Fog, fear, obligation, guilt. These are not random emotional responses. They are patterns, learned, repeated, effective patterns that have worked before, and they are being used again now precisely because they worked. Can I ask you something? Right now, as you are listening, when you picture the moment you last tried to hold a boundary with someone whose face comes to mind, do not rush back in. Hold that person gently in your thoughts, because everything we talk about from here is not to fill you with resentment. It is to hand you back something that was quietly taken from you without your permission. Clarity. Let's keep going. Punishment for a boundary does not always look the same. It wears different faces, but the patterns repeat, and once you can name them, you cannot unsee them. The first is the freeze. They go cold, completely cold. The warmth, the attention, the small daily affections all withdraw without explanation. And they do not explain it. They do not have to. The silence speaks clearly enough. They want you to feel the absence, to understand that your boundary came with a price, that their love is conditional on your compliance. This works especially well on people whose love was conditional in childhood. Your nervous system already knows this pattern. It was trained by it. The second is the explosion. They do not go cold, they go incendiary. Rage, volume, words chosen, even in chaos to land where they know they will hurt most. And when it burns out, they minimize it. I was just frustrated. You know, I didn't mean that. But your body remembers. And the next time you consider saying no, that memory fires before the thought is fully formed. The third is the performance of pain. This one is the most disorienting because it does not look like punishment at all. It looks like genuine suffering. They cry. They become visibly devastated. And because you are someone with a conscience, because you have never wanted to cause pain, you collapse. You take the boundary back. You apologize. You undo it, and they recover almost immediately. That recovery speed is information. The fourth is the campaign. They go sideways. They speak to family members, to mutual friends, to anyone in a shared circle. They shape the narrative carefully. Suddenly you are receiving calls from people who had no part in this, gently suggesting you may have been a little harsh. You are now defending your boundary on multiple fronts simultaneously, outnumbered, exhausted, which is precisely the point. The fifth is the revisionist history. Your boundary today becomes evidence of a pattern they have apparently always known about. They reach back through years. Every moment you were imperfect. Every mistake. Your limit becomes proof of a fundamental character flaw. You walked in wanting to protect your peace. You walk out somehow feeling like you have always been the problem. 5 forms, 1 function. Make the cost of the limit unbearable, so you stop setting them. And now, here's what I most want you to carry with you when this episode ends. Their punishment is not about your boundary. It was never about your boundary. It is about what your boundary revealed to them about themselves. When a person has done even some of the work of knowing themselves, when they have learned to sit with their own discomfort, a boundary from someone they love does not shatter them. It may sting, it may require conversation, but it does not produce rage or silence that stretches for days or campaigns, because a secure person understands, even when it is uncomfortable, that your needs are not a judgment of them, but for someone who has not built that stability, someone whose sense of self depends on controlling the emotional environment around them. Your boundary is a mirror, and what that mirror shows them, they cannot bear to look at. It shows them that you are a separate person, that you have an inner life they do not have full access to, that you can exist, fully exist, without their approval. For a fragile sense of self that is genuinely destabilizing, psychologists describe this as a narcissistic injury, a wound to the self-image that the person does not have the internal tools to process, and so they externalize it. They make it your fault. They punish the mirror for what it showed them. You were not punished for having a boundary. You were punished because your boundary forced them to feel something they have spent their entire life organizing their world to avoid. That is their limitation, not yours. And the most honest, most compassionate thing you can do for yourself and for them is to stop pretending otherwise. You are allowed to need what you need, even when it is inconvenient for someone else. You are drifting now. Let the thinking mind go quiet. Let the weight of everything you have been carrying set itself down somewhere just outside of you for tonight. And as you go deeper, let these words find the quietest part of you. My needs are not a burden. They are simply information about who I am. I do not owe anyone unlimited access to my energy, my time, or my peace. Setting a limit is an act of honesty, not cruelty. When someone punishes me for having a need, they are showing me their wound, not my worth. I am allowed to protect myself, gently, firmly, without apology. I am allowed to be a full person, in every room, in every relationship, on every ordinary day. The love I deserve does not come with punishment attached. I am safe right now, in this breath, in this moment, in this body. Let it all rest. This was Hush Beam, and if tonight gave you something a name for something you have been living without words, a reason to stop apologizing for the simple act of existing as a full person, please share this episode. You genuinely never know who in your life is lying in the dark right now, inside the exact situation we just walked through together. One share might be the thing that finds them. If you have not yet subscribed to Hushbeam, please do. A new story arrives every single week. Each one made carefully. Each one made for you. And the next episode is already waiting. It is called Why You Miss Someone Who Destroyed You. It is the one about trauma bonding. Why your mind and body stay attached to someone who hurt you long after you know better. And it will hold you with as much honesty and as much gentleness as tonight did. It is linked right here. But for right now, rest. You showed up tonight. You were willing to understand yourself a little more deeply. That is not a small thing. Sleep well. This is Hushbeam, and I will see you in the next one.